So the goal of this video is to kind of shed some light on some of the opening moves, specifically the estates, which I think a lot of new players would really benefit from understanding better, and some more experienced players too. It's one of those fairly new mechanics that I think came out 2 years ago or so, but some people may still be fuzzy on it. So we're going to go over kind of estate land, selling titles, seizing land, the diet, and all of the privileges that you can give to the various estates. But our case study is going to be Brandenburg. It is a minor in the HRE. It is also an elector. So,
just also very, very beloved minor nation to be played.
It is. It has great units too. Only slightly worse than Lübeck's, who has the best unit pack in the game by far. So, speaking of Brandenburg, let's say we just loaded into this game. We're in a multiplayer, and we're trying to ramp our nation as quickly as we can. So
let's talk about what we do before unpausing. We're not gonna go into any specific details. It's supposed to be generic.
Right. So these are the principles that you would want to apply to pretty much any nation at all. If we are talking about Brandenburg specifically, we will say because we're playing as Brandenburg, you would consider doing this. But yes, these are principles that should be applied broadly.
The biggest part of your nation setup before unpausing is managing your states.
So typically you will start with 30% crown land, and you can see the amount of crown land that we have is giving no effect right now. But as we seize land or sell titles, our percentage of crown land that we control will change. Right now it's at 30%. You can see that each of our estates control different proportions of land. Clergy is at 10, and this is affecting their influence and loyalty equilibrium. So their influence is basically how much power they control in your court. If it gets to 100, it can threaten a disaster. So you don't want your influence to be too high. This can also be mitigated and affected by events.
Yeah, I don't think the disaster matters, unless you're Lang Zhang.
I mean, you don't want to get the clergy disaster, because then tech costs and idea costs are plus 20%.
It never happens. Like, even if you have 100 influence, it never happened to me. I don't know.
Yeah, the disasters are usually easily preventable if you're able to maintain a high loyalty equilibrium. The loyalty equilibrium is what it will drift towards. So it says here that the equilibrium is 37.2, which means that it is always going to regress if it's too high to 37.2%, or appreciate if it's below 37.2% to that equilibrium. The degree to which they are loyal will give you different modifiers. So you can see, because they're loyal at 50%, you're getting a small buff to your tax.
Yeah, this effect, they will give you additional modifiers if they have 60% or more loyalty. And there will be negative penalties for being below 30%.
Right. So
and the amount of these modifiers scale by the influence they have. So if they have like 50 or 60% influence, they give more tax income, for example.
But so the proportions of the land each give you influence and give you equilibrium to their respective estates. Their land share can be adjusted and changed depending on their influence in the nation, right? So when you sell titles, more of it will go to the nobility because they have a higher...
because they have more land. You sell 10% and it's proportional to the amount of land they already have.
Right, okay. So right now if we sell titles, it will give us 132 ducats. So right off the bat, that's a lot of money for somebody who is making 1.35 ducats per month. They don't have a great trade node, and their starting treasury is 53 ducats. So this is going to be a major source of your income. Almost always, selling titles is going to be a really good idea. It also gives all estates 10 loyalty. So if we click this button, it will give 132 ducats, and all estates will become loyal.
Of course, you can make use of the 10 loyalty it gives to your estates. For example, if you wanted to develop, it's very good to get your Burhers above 60% with this, so you gain the dev cost reduction from it.
Yeah,
And
the burgers at 60% plus will give you a dev cost reduction in addition to the trade efficiency.
yeah, and very importantly, also you gain more money from selling crown land the less you have.
Right. So we'll see
So
that.
so if you plan on selling crown land, if you can, always do it like before seizing land, if you can.
Yeah, we'll demonstrate that in just a moment. So first off, let's start looking at some of our privileges that we can hand out.
I mean, let's just start with so that people actually know like the setup. So just hand out the mana privileges like right away, I would say, because like this is a no-brainer.
Right. So
It really is.
all estates will have privileges that give you 1 mana power at the cost of -10 crown land, just a one-time lump sum payment of 10 crown land, and a constant loyalty equilibrium modifier of -5%. But we can get that back by handing out other privileges.
Yeah.
Later on. So, yeah, the no-brainer that absolutely every single game in a multiplayer, the first thing is you go to Nobility and you hand out this privilege. It is so important to have strong military mana generation early game, especially because some of the early techs are super important. Tech 4 has a massive disparity between Tech 3 and Tech 4 mil techs, and Tech 5 and Tech 6 has a huge discrepancy. So if somebody is attacking you, they have a mil tech higher, you're in danger. So you want to try and keep your military mana generation very high. So that put us down to 20 crown land, and you can see now if we sell titles, it's going to give us more money because we have less crown land to give. So it's a more scarce resource, it's worth more. Basic economics 101.
Yeah. I mean, the next no-brainer is you should also hand out always the admin privilege to the clergy.
Right. And
Because,
why
like admin is extremely important early game because you need it to core, and you don't want to fall behind in admin tech because it unlocks your idea groups.
we have expanding to do all around us.
But if you know it's going to be a little bit more chill, or if you're in a part of a war but you're like not the main focus point of it, you can definitely and probably should take the Diplomana privilege.
Yeah. So these are the main privileges that take crown land. There are also the governing capacity ones that take 5%. Every estate is going to have one that gives 5 loyalty, 5 influence, and takes 5 crown land. Don't even worry about the absolutism. We'll get to that. But now we're at 10% crown land. And you can see we now have some malices, some negative modifiers. And red numbers are immediately going to scare more timid and less experienced players. But we're here to tell you, don't be afraid of these numbers. Because let's just think about these right now. Liberty desire from subjects development plus 50%. We don't have any subjects. And very few starting nations have that many subjects. And if they do, they're probably a huge nation. It may not even affect liberty desire that much.
But especially because it only affects the liberty desire they gain from their development. So
right.
Even if you have vassals, they're probably not going to have more than like 30 dev. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Next up, absolutism, minus 15 maximum absolutism. We are 2 ages away from that. Over 100 years. Almost 200 years, 150 years away from that even becoming remotely relevant.
And even then, it's not relevant.
And even that,
doesn't.
Yeah, absolutism is not very good unless a mod buffs it. It makes it worth doing. Because it's only the max discipline you can get from is 5%. Not worth jumping through all those hoops. Next, we have monthly autonomy. This is admittedly quite relevant. Autonomy is a key modifier for managing your nation because if you have high autonomy, it just makes all of your provinces worse. So we have 2% autonomy, and we're getting all these malices.
Autonomy just makes your provinces worse. It's very bad. But this is it's a necessary thing you have to do pretty much. It's annoying, but it's not a big issue because you can lower the autonomy manually via the macro builder.
Yep.
You can just lower it. You're gonna have to fight rebels, but that's alright. You can fight rebels. It's okay.
Rebels are pushovers.
This is like the big difference to single player, where you would like usually play on like speed 4 or 5 and the entire game goes a little bit faster. In multiplayer, you just have more time when you play on speed 2 to manage your nation, so it's not that bad to like reduce autonomy and just fight a rebel stack here and there.
And lastly, we have the national tax modifier, which, tax becomes less relevant as you move through the ages, unless you're playing on a wacky mod, which we love to do. But yeah, tax is not a huge part of a huge factor of your income. I mean, minus 15% of 3 ducats is not going to amount to the 170 that we would gain from selling titles. So now we only have 10% crown land left, and there's a few other things that we could do. So maybe we don't need to give the land of commerce privilege. If we had more, maybe we would.
I mean, so I think this is where you make your first decision here. Like, this should be, you could definitely and should hand out the diplomana privilege in most scenarios, but you can think about already selling crown land here if you need the money early game.
Yep.
So, for example, if you know you have a big player war coming up at the first session, I would sell titles instead. Yeah. Let's just assume you don't have a war coming up. Let's just hand out the privilege, and just keep going, seizing land. Make sure.
So now we've hit rock bottom here. These are the worst modifiers that you're gonna get. The plus 0.4% monthly autonomy is kind of huge. So you definitely want to. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck at 0 crown land.
Don't go below 5%. Below 5% is very, very bad.
So
when you seize lands, you will take 5% crown land from your estates. It will upset them. Yeah. They will lose 20 loyalty.
Rebels may rise up if any estate drops below 30 loyalty. So you can see all of our estates are at 50%. 50% loyalty. It's
gonna be fine.
So it's gonna be
also
fine.
Very notably, if rebels do rise up from this, they're usually extremely small. So
yeah, it's like 2k stacks.
Yeah. So now we have this nice scenario actually where we are at 5% crown land. A lot of the time, you're not. I think you fixed it actually, right?
Yeah. So we fixed it in the mod. A lot of the time, if you aren't at 5%, you're at 4.9999% crown land, then what you can do is
and then just sort by cost. Yeah, like this, and then you just develop the cheapest one. Because this is how you should dev in general, and I have seen people not doing it.
So that increases your crown land.
Yeah, one dev click always increases your crown land by 0.2%. So it's very useful tool if you're just below 10%, if you're just below 5%, dev click a few times to get it up.
So the next privilege that I think is always a no-brainer is the supremacy of the crown. What it does is it gives all of your estates plus 10% loyalty and plus 10% influence. So there's a lot of those, but what makes this so useful is that it only takes up 1 slot. You only have 4 slots in each of your estates to give out privileges for, and this one is going to boost all of them at the same time at the cost of only 1 slot.
I mean, I also like it a lot, but you can argument against it. I mean, nobility is usually the least contested privilege estate, if you could say it like that.
Right. Okay, so let's say we're Russia, or we're Muscovy. They will have the strong duchies, which is really, really good. It gives you 2 diplomatic relations, and it decreases the liberty desire of all of your subjects.
We just want to show it off and say that this is the one important to keep a slot free. If you plan on expanding with vassals, you should keep a slot open in your nobility estate for this one.
Yeah, it essentially
what we want to show.
Gives you 2 free relations. So going back to Brandenburg.
I mean, we also have to talk about, of course, the advisor cost reduction privilege for each estate.
Right.
That one is usually it's a tricky one because you also want to give it like to every single estate, but you can't always, unfortunately. But minus 25% advisor cost is pretty strong. But you usually do this after, like, if you want to step up early game, you of course want to do it after you, or you want to give out the privilege after you step up. The reason for that would be to gain prosperity in your states.
Right.
But if you don't plan on spending admin on stepping up early, you can give out the privileges right away.
And
That's like the consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, and what Raz said about gaining prosperity is it only grows if you have positive stability. So keeping above 1 stability is generally the goal.
Yeah, but you're always desperate for mana, at least in the first 50 years of the game.
Right, yeah. Advisors are a key element of generating your diplomatic, military, and admin powers.
Especially because your ruler is not great, so...
Yeah, and that'll be a lot of countries early game. Yeah.
If the slots are not contested by more important privileges that are usually more specific, then these are also usually pretty no-brainers.
Right.
Because admin matters less and less the longer the session goes, the campaign goes. So it's really not that bad to spend like 20 or 30 more admin to step up. But those advisor costs, they do matter.
One thing that I don't recommend doing, this used to be part of the meta, but increased levies gives you national manpower depending on the amount of land that your nobility controls. It takes up a slot. The national tax modifier isn't that important, but getting this to a number where it's like 25 or 30%, that's like really where it starts becoming competitive. Up until that point, it's kind of just like, it's just taking up a slot and giving nobility more influence than loyalty, which makes it harder to revoke a privilege. One thing that I think is really important to point out is these buttons or these privileges are all grayed out because we have higher influence than loyalty in this estate. You can see here, if we click on one of these, we could revoke this, and it'll reduce their loyalty by 20%. But we can only do that because their loyalty is higher than their influence. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doling out estates. Don't think, oh, I'll just take religious diplomats and I'll drop it whenever I want because religious diplomats is going to give you plus 15% influence while it's only giving you 5% loyalty equilibrium. So I think definitely aristocratic counselors in what we're doing right now is a good call. Right of council, and there's a lot of these that give 10% loyalty, 10% influence. It's just kind of chuff. It's filler.
Yeah, but it's filler. We don't have space for it usually.
Yeah, because there are better and more competitive ones that actually give bonuses.
Like for now, this would be a good setup because usually you should plan on expanding with vessels early game to save admin power. And Diplo's not as important, so keeping a slot open for strong duchies is always a good idea.
Yeah, if you're planning on taking something in the future once it opens up, I like to leave a slot just in case I need to give a monopoly. Monopolies are nice because they only give loyalty, they don't give influence. So if you're like, damn, I took that supremacy of the crown, I need my strong duchies, and I need another privilege, maybe you could give out a livestock, get your loyalty above your influence that way, but because it only contributes to loyalty and not influence, that way you're able to, color these in and revoke one.
Because we have to say the money you gain from it it's only 80% of what you would make from that production income in the same time. So you lose money giving them out.
Mm-hmm.
It should be an important mention here. And especially you lose even more money, of course, if you do actually build manufactories or workshops on those provinces.
But mercantilism farming.
Yeah, that's the main reason for it, I think. But that's also...
it's a very niche.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Yeah,
for clergy, I think what we need to talk about most is religious culture and expansionist zealotry. I think those are the two important ones.
Yeah, let's start with expansionist zealotries.
Yeah.
So it gives you 5% morale while you're at war with heretics or heathens. Sounds pretty nice. But minus 5% if you're at peace with them for 15 years. So this is for when you have a player on your border who's a different religion and you know you're going to be butting heads with them. If you're Austria and you have to fight the Ottomans, you take it, because you'll pretty much always be at war with them. If you're Poland and you're expanding east into Orthodox regions, take it. You're Catholic, you're fighting Orthodox.
Yeah, so this one is, this is the one where you usually want to keep a slot open for in your clergy privileges, so you usually only want to take 3 max, so you can have this one open. Because it's also easy to revoke because it gives neither influence nor loyalty, so it's a non-factor in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it also like plays into the theme of the mod, which wants you to spread out among different religions with the Defender of Faith buff. So it's usually good just to have in if you actually if you have a religion that no one else has. Like for example, if you're Jewish, Hussite, Coptic, Anglican.
So you can see we have a couple of chuffs right here. We have church sanctuaries and oversight by clergy. I call them chuff just because they give as much loyalty, equilibrium as influence, and they don't really give anything else. But church sanctuaries I like a little bit more because it gives you papal influence, which early game can really help when you build churches. It takes it away when you destroy churches late game, but typically by that point maybe you even convert away from Catholicism, so papal influence doesn't matter, or you just revoke this.
Yeah, I mean, if you convert away, I think the privilege goes away as well.
Yes, that's quite likely.
And this is of course just relevant for Catholics, and I think Buddhist nations have this privilege, where they gain or lose karma if they build temples, which is a bit cooler because sometimes you want to lose karma.
Yeah. Again, we have the advisor privilege, which, let's say we take it. It's a solid one. We wanna explode in mana. We're not worried about our governing capacity, so we're not giving that one out. But maybe we want to
these are also, of course, very, very important considerations, especially with the new mod update of our mod. Going over governing capacity is very punishing, so you should plan ahead a little bit, and if you need a space in your estates for this one, because the 100 governing capacity can be life-saving. This is very relevant for these like big nations that struggle to become an empire for a long time.
Yeah, if
for
you're
example,
Muscovy.
France, Muscovy, France, Burgundy.
Well, Muscovy is locked into duchy rank until they form Russia, right? So this is going to be a key component for their gameplay.
Yeah, so this is you need a little bit of foresight for this, but they are very important.
Yeah, and that's a lot of governing capacity. That's a lot. But I think the keys or the highlights.
It's religious culture.
Yes, religious culture.
So this is the one. This is a nice buff for like more smaller, compact nations that don't spread everywhere. We have to mention that like in our mod the tooltip here lies a little bit, because it's not correct, unfortunately.
It gives a drawback.
Yeah, like what we changed is that like the text production manpower is increased to 15% instead of just 10. But the culture conversion cost is reduced by is increased by 10% instead of reduced. So
it's not just good.
It's not just good. I mean, you can also see when you hand it out, you gain less tolerance of heretics and heathens, and you gain -1 max promoted culture, which can be quite an issue early game if you're not an empire or if you expand between multiple different culture groups. For example, England would have a problem with this because their culture group is pretty small, and then they would not be able to, if they keep onto their French holdings, they wouldn't be able to accept French and Irish cultures, for example. So it's mostly useful for like empires that only expand in their own culture group or like very small compact nations.
Yeah.
But then it's very good. I think you usually take it when you know where your borders are going to be, and once you settle on your religion, you converted all your provinces, and this includes religion and culture, and then you take it. Like in vanilla, it's different because in vanilla it doesn't give you -1 max promoted cultures, and it decreases the culture conversion cost. So there's like really no downside to just handing it out, to be honest. Which is why we changed it.
So the last one is religious diplomats, which I mentioned briefly.
The single player all-star.
Yeah, single player all-star. But it takes up a spot and it gives you a lot of influence. But when you're dealing with humans, in-game relations don't really count for a whole lot. So,
Yeah.
and that's the fun of multiplayer. I mean, that's why I love it. I love making deals with people.
Yeah. Like you can, I mean, people can argue for it. It sometimes prevents nation from joining coalitions and stuff, but it's rarely ever worth it, I would say.
Yeah. Just make sure
Of
that
course.
you're able to revoke it later because it's not good later.
Yeah, same argument can be made for Burgundy to get like, because they need to get the French vessels to like them for their one
Yeah.
mission, but even then, questionable. Burhers. So Burhers is usually like the most contested privilege run-wise, I'd say.
Wait. How do you say this?
Burhers?
It's not burgers?
Would you really say burgers?
Yeah.
Huh.
There's
I
a
don't know.
G.
Yeah, but like I compressed the G and the H into a sound, you know? Burhers?
Burgers.
Burhers?
And this is why it's so hotly contested.
Yeah, I don't know. Saying burgers sounds very wrong. I don't know.
Anyway,
Burgers, yeah.
but it's very hotly contested. Go on.
Yeah. So yeah, we have to talk about the most important here, which is indebted to the burgers. I think So this is the important one. The free money button. Yeah. So this one allows you to it grants you 5 loans, but only at a 1% interest rate, which is like nothing. And this is of course very important if you need a big chunk of cash for a war, but even also just to build up your economy once you unlock manufactories, or like to embrace an institution, for example. Maybe even to upgrade an important monument. Just whenever you need a big chunk of money, you should have this privilege available. So
That's why you always leave a slot.
always leave a slot open. Yeah, back in the day, you could even like just revoke this privilege and grant it again, which is like completely busted.
Yeah.
That was so broken, but I think even Paradox fixed it in vanilla by now. Because there's also this horrible Burr privilege one that looks like indebted to the Burrs.
Oh yes, beware.
Yeah, that one. Beware of this one.
Beware of control over monetary policy. It has the same icon as
it can,
indebted to the burgers.
Like this is a very advanced like type of like this can be really good in like really like death war situations because it does reduce your inflation and interest per annum, which can be life-saving. It can be, but if you don't know what you're doing, never take it.
Yeah, because the all powers cost is just so punishing.
Yeah.
It's just a needless expense. You pay money to get mana through advisors. That's what advisors do. They convert ducats into mana. And what you're doing here is doing the opposite. You're converting mana into ducats. So unless you're in a very dire situation where you're having to rely on loans, you're paying a lot of interest, you have a lot of inflation, don't ever take this.
Yeah.
People take it thinking that it's indebted to burgers, myself included. I want to change the icon just so that a big fat X over it is what it should be.
Nope.
Big old nope. And I think that's a decent segue to patronage of the arts. Patronage of the arts is, an even split between influence and loyalty. It gives you prestige in a lump sum, but if you're in negative prestige, then it gives you even more. So, for example, if we disinherit our heir...
Oh shit, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, so if we disinherit our heir, see we're at 4 prestige now, we go to minus 25, and when we refresh this, it gives 25.
Oh wait, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, so this is massive. So that pulls you out of your little rut, and this one you can just revoke it and keep giving it. Like if you go bankrupt and you have a couple slots open, you can just revoke it, keep giving it back. Your prestige is going to get back really, really fast. If your burgers or Burhers loyalty is higher than their influence.
Wait, I think no. Actually, the only reason their influence is so high is because of the supremacy of the crown. I think actually.
Yeah, the supremacy of the crown bumped it
so
up.
so if we didn't give that away, we could do that right now. This is also like very, very nice because sometimes you get in early estate missions from the Summoner Diet where they want you to have 30 prestige and you gain 50 admin for it. So you can just always just hand out this privilege, revoke it, grant it again, and you just have the mission completed immediately.
Yeah.
And you just gain 50 free admin. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Advisor cost reductions.
As usual. So, and then, yeah, they have some nice monopolies. But then they have a few, like most of the good, like, privileges you unlock from, like, other events and circumstances in the game are usually Burr privileges.
Right, yeah, in Africa.
Just a very, very, very classic one is why you need to keep an extra slot open is when you're a colonizer, because as soon as you have a colonist, you gain the Grand New World Charters privilege, which gives you more settler chance and global settler growth, which is of course essential if you're a colonizer. So that is a really important one. In Southeast Asia, they have this one that grants you death cost in your tropical climate stuff. That's a very important one. So,
yeah. So designing your estates in the beginning kind of depends on your gameplay. Are you going to be a colonial nation? Then you need to leave some privileges free. I think there's one for clergy as well. Increases the chance of assimilation, native assimilation.
Yeah, that one is less important though, but it's nice if you can leave a slot open for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So picking your estates is definitely a very, very important keystone to the kind of game that you are going to have. I don't usually pick the advisor cost reduction estate privileges that early just because, I mean, if you're a small nation, you can't always afford them. You're not getting a huge bang for your buck. If there's other things that you want to prioritize, put those in. Even if it's just chuff and you're just going to get rid of it later, that's fine too. But remember, don't lock yourself in. Don't take where is it? Don't take command of the military. This is this is horrible. I did it once in a multiplayer because I was playing as Milan that had access to the militarization mechanic, but even then, it was not good.
Yeah, it's just really bad. Not only because of the crown and the influence, but leader cost plus 20% can be like, actually it can lose you the fucking campaign because there will be like, if you're in a dev war and your opponent has a good leader and you need to roll like fucking 10 generals to get a decent one, then this one only lets you roll like 8.
Late game, you can't get rid of it just because their influence is so high. It's so hard to get rid of it, and I just couldn't.
In general, there are a few privileges that say increases mana cost of some sort. They're usually not worth it.
Yeah, I think that's just about it for estates. Let's kind of talk a little bit about some of the starting moves.
I think do you want to say that you should keep selling crown and seizing whenever you can, pretty much?
Yes. So basically, always be seizing land and selling crown lands. They're on timers, 5-year timers. So we can't seize land for another 5 years. In the mod, you can seize while you're at war.
Yeah.
But in vanilla, you can't seize while you're at war. So keep that in mind.
All 3 of these buttons are usually all very good, and just usually always press them when you can.
Some of the diet,
but be aware, like after they change it this patch, that you can only sell crown land if you actually have 10%. So as we said, don't go below 5% crown land. So if you just seize land and you went up to 10%, don't sell it unless you plan on deving a lot right after, because you don't want to be stuck at 0% crown land.
So the only thing you really need to be worrying about is your autonomy. When you're dealing with crown land, you really only need to worry about, am I in trouble with my autonomy? Right now we're at 2%. That's fine. We can click this button. It gives minus 25, but we have such low autonomy. It's totally fine.
Also, very notably, that this autonomy stuff, like as you go later into the game and your government rank goes up, once you get your government reforms and maybe an idea or two, and prosperity in your states, the autonomy will be less and less of an issue. The raising autonomy, that is. Because at some point they're just going to cancel each other out. And the bigger you are, the more juicy that the fucking sell Cronen button becomes. It's so juicy. Oof.
Yeah, it does give a lot of money.
So much cash.
And that's why we love it, especially early game. It's just so useful.
This is also like one of the thing when you build up your nation, you can always build up your nation. Like, unless you literally have every building slot in every province you have is full, you can always use money. I think that's also a thing people don't really grasp.
Even when you don't have buildings to build, like at Tech 3, you have merc companies, which are a super useful way to conserve manpower in the early game. You want to build one of these. The free company is super cheap. It gives you an additional 13,000 manpower to play around with.
Yep.
It's just it's going to launch you into the early game in a good position if you have some mercenaries. You're not going to get trapped at 0 manpower if you conserve and use your mercs to siege down your opponents.
Yeah, this is very important. Like, I don't know, a lot of I don't know, you're used to like building up to force limit once you start, but it's like almost always just better to just hire a merc company to fill out your force limit instead.
Yeah, and we're going a little over. That's fine.
Because like even if you don't fight, even if you just fight small AI or you don't fight them at all because they just run away and you don't take any battles, you're still gonna take so much attrition from sieging their capitals early game. Because you just have to siege down lots of small capitals in the early game, so it will always cost you a lot of manpower. So it's always very well advised to just take mercs instead.
Speaking of mana, which we weren't, but now we are, we want to think about our advisors. And we want to look at our income and say, okay, can we afford any advisors? Yes, we can, because we're making money. And when you're making money, you hire advisors.
Yep. Yes.
The most important is going to be military power, of course, which we're making the least of here. Focusing, I mean, it's a judgment call. It's always a judgment call. You can focus if you want.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't even talk about that. But
I mean, usually I like to always make the mil focused early game so you can stay on time and tech.
Mm-hmm.
And because your first idea group is always going to be a mil group, right?
Yep.
So you want to have to focus there anyway to fill it out. And then the first time you can change it, which will be like in 25 years or so.
20 years.
Yeah. Depends on your government rank.
Oh, does it? Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 25 because I'm a duchy. If I were a kingdom, it'd be 20.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, kingdom would be 20 and empire 10, I think.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, it depends, but like most of the time, I like to change it to admin then because you have an admin idea group to fill out, and because you're kind of stretching admin at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually I like doing this.
Mill will keep you safe. It will keep you alive. Go for it.
Keep you relevant. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go for the manpower one.
Yeah.
These ones, the trade efficiency advisor is Bay.
Yeah, he sometimes pays for itself, but not if our trade notice this shit. Yeah.
Yeah, our trade note is shit, so we're not going to get him.
So usually also like the, wait, how do you say the order in which we gave out the mana privileges for these states is also the order you should usually hire advisors. So usually mill one first. If you have more money, admin. If you have more money, Diplo.
We're not hiring advisors in either of these two because we don't have the money. So we shouldn't have given out these two.
Yeah, we should not.
It's just we can give them out later. Yeah. So we're not going to get any more advisors because we're getting a little strapped for cash. We're going to have a new free company soon. That's going to be costing us money. But what are we going to do with the free company? Well, when you're a small nation inside the HRE, a great way to start is by getting more mana. And how can we get more mana, Raz? Is there any way we can get any more mana?
Oh yeah, you just press one of these lovely shield buttons there.
Ooh.
And pick the weakest nation you see here.
Oh my god. You mean like... I don't want to pick Magdeburg because they have a level 3 fort. Luneburg.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you also check a little bit like what sort of alliances do we have, you know.
Well, nobody has any alliances.
Yeah, yet, but like you can wait with your rivals for a day or two.
I kind of want to take Luneburg.
Because when you pick your rivals early, they are more inclined to ally, and you don't want shitty HRE minus to allied. Like, you know, keep your power projection over 50, insult rivals. Take a little bit of land first so you have aggressive expansion that cools down.
Yeah.
Then humiliate one of your small rivals and show strength. It's
So we insult our rivals to give us power projection.
Yeah.
Oh, we must have positive prestige.
Oh. You can also normally, you don't have to scornfully insult them.
Yeah, I guess we don't have to scornfully insult them. So we do that, and it gives us some power projection, and that's great. What we're gonna do is we're gonna move our troops over here, and we're gonna get ready to humiliate some of these little bitches.
Yeah, I would do it like a war where you take land or vessel first, just so aggressive expansion starts to cool down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but you can't. You don't have time to fabricate a claim. It takes like forever in the HRE. So yeah, we're gonna be getting a claim simultaneously on, you know, these nations.
Yeah, choose your time.
But while we're doing that, we're going to start murdering, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And Mecklenburg or Lüneburg has made a big mistake by rivaling us, and we're going to show them what happens in December of 1444 to people who rival us.
Yeah, so I think this should really be said very, very clearly that humiliating and showing strength is one of your it's like the main advantage of playing a small nation early game in EU4. Like the big nations, they don't have it as easy. If you play like Poland and you rival Hungary, you don't really want to 100% war score them just to show strength. You want to take land. Did you just take 3 loans?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
The fate
of Nuremberg.
Yeah. In a speed 2 multiplayer game, you would have taken a state loans here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, like that event is actually a good reason to sell Crown instead of taking the dip mana privilege, I think. And of course, as we usually say, it's multiplayer. You play on speed 2. You have time. Don't siege forts with more people than you need to. It's unnecessary attrition.
Right. I'm using the free company here to siege.
Yeah, exactly. And you pulled all the others off. And use your merc companies to siege if you can to preserve manpower.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to show you can humiliate, and that's going to give you 30 power projection. But you could also show strength, and that's going to give you the 30 power projection, and it's going to give you 100 of each monarch power. That's 300 mana. That's so much mana. Imagine how much it would cost for advisors to get 300 mana.
I mean, just check your current mana generation. I mean, 100 mana in each category. That's like, it's like a year of your mill mana generation.
Yeah.
It's like 1.5 years of both your others. So showing strength just puts you 1.5 years ahead, pretty much.
And it only took us a year to do this too, essentially.
Very good to preserve admin power, and vassalizing a nation gives less aggressive expansion than fully annexing them, so...
When the mercs are doing all the work.
Now they unconditionally surrendered though.
Ah. Beautiful. We can take some more exhaustion.
You can piece them out for money.
No, I can't.
Oh, a second ago they would have accepted it when you stood on the other province.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
That's cute. Oh well. We'll take the money. That pays for everything. And we'll show strength. And look.
Boom. Also gives you all the power projection you need usually.
Yeah, massive.
We still didn't declare all our rivals, which is why we're below 50 here.
I mean, who's next? But yeah, I think
this is what you want to take advantage of if you're a small nation, that you can rival all of these weak AI nations. You can just stack on them for humiliation.
And money.
And money.
Look at all the money.
So also, if you take the time to fully siege down their allies and you don't know what to do with the war score, you know, you can also just always cancel rivalries, because that's like 3-5 prestige for each one that you cancel.
That's all, folks. Hope this has been helpful and has given you some multiplayer perspective.